Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So, of course, we got our first Doctor Who episode in months. I think it's like 9 or 10 months now since the finale of Series 12, and we finally get a new episode, which, of course, this episode was filmed with Series 12, meaning that it did skip the pandemic. It never got affected by that, unlike Series 13, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But let's talk about Revolution of the Daleks. It aired, of course, yesterday. As an American, I have a distinct disadvantage because they don't air it around the world at the same time. It airs at, I guess, 8, wherever. So I got to see it a full 5 hours after everybody else, which it's great if you're a viewer in America because a lot of the reviews are already up, like YouTube videos, by the time it's done airing, which is nice. But it is kind of annoying when you're trying to come up with a review. But before I jump into it, I just want to say that my new comedy web series, YouTube Blue, is premiering today. If you go over to the YouTube Blue YouTube channel linked in the description, you can watch episode 1, the pilot episode. I think it's a slightly specific sense of humor, but if you do like it, stay put because we're doing 12 more episodes, 13 episodes for season 1, and maybe season 2 will follow after that. We'll see. But anyway, let's get into Revolution of the Daleks. So first off, I just want to say that the overall plot for this was pretty clever, honestly. It's very even. It doesn't speed up and slow down the pace as it goes throughout, and the finale is really good. I really liked the finale of how the Doctor ended up defeating the Daleks, which, I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil that for you, but it's really good, and I honestly think that it's a huge improvement for Chris Chibnall. Now, personally, I'm one of the weirdos who liked the Series 12 finale, but and I enjoy that episode more than this episode, but I think, and that's mostly because of acting and presentation and just the story of it. But I think this is probably Chibnall's best written episode yet, just by the fact that his previous episodes have had issues like pacing being kind of uneven throughout, and character moments being rushed, and it feeling like the action grinds to a halt just so that something else like a character moment can happen, or the finale not being very clever and just happening all at once right at the end because it seems like he's more into revealing all the planned stuff and having everything in jeopardy, and then just kind of ties it up right at the end. But I think this was really good, and maybe that's because of the extended runtime, because like the premieres and finales for the Chris Chibnall era, this is longer. This is a full 70 minutes, which is that's almost a feature length. So this is practically a Doctor Who movie. And I just wanted to say that I think that's a big improvement. I also want to say that it's a nice follow-up to Series 12, while also really being its own thing. It was able to keep the Doctor secluded from the rest of the fam. I don't really like that they do that. It's a little endearing by the end of it, but honestly, I kind of wish they never did it, because especially, I mean, first off, that term was kind of outdated by the time they used it in the show, and looking back on it in the future, that's definitely what will date a show that literally should be timeless, considering it's about time travel. But anyway, I think that having her separate was really able to show the difference between the characters and also give a little bit of a time gap, which makes sense. I was kind of disappointed a little bit because I assumed that from the trailers that the way the episode would be working was that the Doctor would be trapped in the Judoon prison for most of the episode and would be eventually break herself out. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Jack Harkness would show up and it'd basically be him and the rest of the companions saving the world for most of it. And then the Doctor comes in at the end and gives them a bit of a push using the TARDIS, and that would be kind of how it would work. And I was kind of looking forward to being able to see the companions kind of sort things out on their own. And this episode almost went in the exact opposite direction of that, where like they try, but then they're just like, oh well, I guess we can't do what the Doctor does, which does kind of put a damper on things when Ryan and Graham leave the TARDIS, which I'll get to in a second. But first, I want to talk about Jack Robertson. So Jack Robertson, here's a little bit of an admission. I haven't seen Arachnids in the UK. When Series 11 was airing, I just wasn't used to it being on a Sunday night, so there were multiple weeks where I just forgot, and they didn't air reruns very often, so I still haven't seen Arachnids in the UK. I've heard mixed things on it. There are a few people who like it, and a bunch of people who dislike it. From what I've heard about it, the plot doesn't sound that good. But anyway, Jack Robertson does return here from Arachnids in the UK, and just based on this, he's not a horrible character. He is somewhat one-dimensional sometimes, and he does come off a bit too much as a Trump impersonator at times, which that's what his character is. It's supposed to be kind of a parody of Trump in a way, but it's almost cartoonish at times, and I don't want to say that like because it makes it sound like horrible. It does kind of border on that sometimes, where like it's almost like he's literally doing a Trump impersonation while reading his lines, which I'm not a big fan of. I think a subtler route would have been better because it's a little less distracting and would have made the whole thing a little more timeless. I do think some of the themes in this of like, having the defense drones in quotes, and like having that kind of security measures, and not just showing that having aliens being security is a bad thing, but also kind of edging on the whole like increasing all this security stuff from the government could lead to disaster, which is something that Doctor Who has done in the past. But I especially like it in today's day and age, where security is kind of a thing that like there are a small amount of people who are really concerned about security, and then everybody else is just like, who cares? Let the government do what it wants. Here, Facebook, take all my stuff. And so it is nice to see them talking about that a little bit, and how it could backfire. But also, obviously, there are pros and cons to everything. So now let's talk about Ryan and Graham's exit, which was a big thing about this. We found out, I think it was not long, like literally, it was announced like a week or two after Series 12 had premiered, because I guess they wanted to kind of keep that surprise, or try to make sure that the fact that they were leaving wouldn't like take away from the finale episodes. It was announced that Bradley Walsh and Tossin Cole would not be returning, and that that this episode would be their last episode, which, I mean, honestly, I think they've had a pretty good run. It did feel sudden to me, because it almost felt like this was a TARDIS team that Chibnall really wanted to ride for a while, and it's just been 2 series. But honestly, I'm okay with them leaving. I think their exit could have gone a little bit better. I think that there are a couple little specks of like Ryan wanting to leave, and then he just kind of blurts out at the end, yeah, I wanna stay here and leave the TARDIS. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that I like Graham as a character more than I like Ryan as a character. And kind of as a part of that, it's kind of a case where I personally found Graham's reasons for exiting, of just trying to like kind of wanting to be with Ryan, to be a little bit more compelling and a little bit more okay, yeah, I understand why he's leaving than Ryan. And honestly, I don't like to insult actors really, but I think part of that is Tossin Cole's performance, in that like he kind of has one tone that he speaks a lot of his lines in. In this episode, he was a little bit better, but just the fact that Bradley Walsh has a little bit more of a range of emotions with his acting really helped me to kind of connect with his character more, even from the beginning. Even in Series 11, which, let's be real here, Series 11 wasn't very good, but it's just kind of been up and up and up since then. Even then, I really liked Graham, and since then I haven't really, like, because, I mean, even just from the basics of it, Graham is a more interesting character that you want to get along with, because he's a nice guy, obviously, but also he has motivations, especially in Series 11, where he wants to be that granddad figure for Ryan. Meanwhile, Ryan doesn't really have very many motivations throughout the entire series, other than wanting to have adventures with his friends, So there was that aspect of it. So while their exit was interesting, I didn't think it was amazing. Also, I think that it is kind of worth noting that remember earlier when I talked about how it was weird that they kind of said that the companions can't do anything without the Doctor at the beginning, and then suddenly at the end they just go out and they're like, well, I guess we can be the Doctor now, just on Earth while they're off Earth, and it doesn't really make much sense. And yeah, it's like they went back on that scene and decided to reinterpret it as, instead of saying that they couldn't be the Doctor because the Doctor has some innate skill, let's just say that they couldn't be the Doctor because they didn't have the psychic paper, and then we'll give them psychic paper and they'll be the Doctor, and that doesn't really make much sense. So next up, we got to talk about Captain Jack. So people had been speculating that he would at least be coming back for the special pretty much since the finale of Series 12, just because John Barrowman literally remodeled his house as a cover for filming for Series 12. And that was such a long process, people looked at that and were like, wait a second, he doesn't appear very much in Fugitive of the Judoon. Why did he have to do all of that? He probably only was on set for a couple of days at max. So why did he have to do all of that? Why couldn't he have a smaller cover? And everybody decided, oh, he's probably also in the special. And that was right. And it was unveiled by the BBC late last month. I think it was on the anniversary. But yeah, and he's back, and he's better than ever. And he also has really great chemistry with Yaz in their scenes together. And you could see that in the trailer, but you can see it even more in the special. And also with a lot of people have been speculating that maybe Captain Jack could come back as a permanent companion in Series 13. I think that's kind of unlikely, but just given how much of that chemistry that we've seen in this special, I honestly really hope he could show up. And honestly, I mean, they haven't announced him for Series 13, and it would seem like they want to minimize the TARDIS crew a little bit more by only having 2 this time, and that going back, or having 3 this time really, and going back to having 4 might be a little bit, a little bit soon, and maybe he'll show up later. We don't know, but it is they definitely could do it. Like John Barrowman could be filming Doctor Who right now, and we don't know it. I mean, just based on the fact that maybe people expected a little more, and also the fact that they were able to hide for the fact that they've been filming Doctor Who since early November, and now here we are early January, and they just announced this new companion who's seemingly, we know already filmed something, but seemingly has been, assuming that he appears in the first episode, which makes sense considering there are only 8 episodes. If he's a companion for the whole thing, he's not going to show up halfway. So so apparently he's been filming this whole time, and we didn't even know. So the fact that Chibnall's able to keep that under wraps enough that he's able to announce a new companion, which I'll talk about in a second, like this, is kind of impressive, and could show that they could bring back Captain Jack as a companion for Series 13 or Series 14, and, no one would really know, at least not for a while. So last but not least here, let's talk about the big announcement that came afterwards, which nobody really saw coming, and that was the announcement of a new companion coming to the TARDIS, and that is John Bishop, who, it wasn't announced in the actual teaser that they made for it, but his character's name is Dan, BBC said in their press release, and let me just read part of it. It basically says that Dan will quickly learn there's more to the universe than he could ever believe. Also, interestingly, there's, next to universe, there's in parentheses an S, which means that maybe that means that we're getting more multiverse stuff. Maybe that means that the multiverse will play a part in the future. Maybe that means that we could see the return of whatever they called those monsters that were at the beginning of Series 12 that were from another dimension, you know? It could mean a few different things, but that's not what we're talking about here. Basically, all this does kind of show us, and it was hinted at in the teaser too, when he's like unloading a truck while this is happening just in London, that this is another modern day England character, which is a little bit disappointing if you ask me, because I was kind of hoping that, like, especially with Captain Jack, who is this more eccentric outer space character that meshed so well with the other actors, I was hoping that the TARDIS team could maybe include the Doctor, and then an English, Mandip Gill as Yaz, just a normal British person from our present day, and then maybe a new companion could be like an alien or someone from the past or someone from the future, like they never do now. Like, they literally, besides Nardal was the only time they ever did this regularly that I can remember, in the new series, pretty much every single companion has just been a person from modern day England, which is kind of disappointing. So, the fact that they're doing that again is a little bit but I mean, if it's a good character, it's a good character. I'm just saying that it would be nice to get something new every now and again. So what did you guys think of Revolution of the Daleks? I honestly really liked it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe for daily videos on the franchises you love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.